Hey guys, welcome back. This is a story about what if Izuku had a bone manipulation quirk with one for all. Changes occur in his life when he finally awakens his own quirk. Before we start, thank you for the support in the last video. This really means a lot to me. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and to leave a like in this video, and you can suggest a My Hero Academia fanfiction with a link in the comments if you want me to read it, and check the description for the creator of this great fanfic and support them for making this fanfic. So let's start. Chapter 12: Explosive Festival End. Stadium Arena. Bakugo vs Kirishima. The match played out the same. Izuku whistled in an impressed tone. Like everyone else, he was impressed by how Bakugo fought against Kirishima's defenses. That was scary, Mineta stuttered in fear. Ochako added with a nervous expression. I think that was worse than when I fought him, she admitted with a bit of sweat. Totally, Mina agreed before turning to Izuku and Ida. Good luck with your match, boys. She cheered with a smile before giving him a quick kiss on the cheek. Thanks, Izuku chuckled before turning to Ida. You ready for this? He asked with an excited grin. Ida nodded with enthusiasm. I am, just don't expect me hold back Midoriya, he added with a challenging tone. Sure, Izuku shrugged before following Ida to the waiting room. As soon as they left, Mineta spoke. Ida's done for. He was cut off by a tongue slap from Tsuyu. Don't underestimate him, Ochako stated, gaining everyone's attention. He's pretty strong too, she stated sincerely, while others agreed. Although all of them did admit in their minds that Izuku was going steamroll over Ida. Stadium Arena. Present MIC did his usual introductions. Introducing the class representative of Class 1A from the Hero course, Tenya Ida. He announced while Ida stepped in with a serious expression while the audience cheered. Versus. Also from the Hero course, Izuku Midoriya. He announced as Izuku stepped in with a grin, while the audience cheered for him as well. Midnight raised her whip in the air. Begin? She cried out before cracking her whip. Ida wasted no time and rushed in with his quirk, but to his surprise, Izuku just stood there while he approached. Once close enough, he went for a powerful kick. Izuku saw this a mile away and ducked under it, briefly shocking Ida with his reflexes. Shaking of his shock, the taller teen went in for another kick. Only for Izuku to dodge the attack again, before making some distance between them. Missed me, Izuku teased with a small chuckle, though inwardly impressed by how fast Ida is. Don't count me out yet, Ida declared with a daring smile before getting into a running stance. Recipro burst, he shouted as his engines flared up. Izuku tensed, wondering just how fast his friend could get before becoming shocked when Ida appeared above him with a kick ready. Whoa! He reacted by quickly charging 10% and ducked under the powerful kick, his hair feeling the wind from the kick. Sheesh, what a boost! He wore a tense expression as he went back into his stance. Ida wasn't fazed by the failed attack and kept going. I have about 10 seconds before my engines stall, he jumped in the air again. I have to win it at that time. He wound up another kick, while Izuku increased his bone density and brought his arms up to meet the attack. Asterisk smack asterisk. The OFA user grunted as he was barely able to hold the kick, and with a heave, he pushed Ida back, sending him to the other end of the arena. The latter quickly recovering to run again, only to stop when he winced from the pain in his legs. Izuku wasn't faring any better, as he eyed his arms with a pained expression. What a kick! He opened and closed his palms with a grunt. Though not as bad as Nomu's punch, he noted before he looked to Ida, who was running at him in blinding speeds. With a few seconds left before stalling, Ida sped behind Izuku and prepared another kick. I've got him. He unleashed the kick towards the teen, who still hasn't turned around. Only for his attack to stop when he froze in mid-air, as he found himself covered by a green glow. What? Ida yelled in shock, as he struggled in disbelief. Izuku chuckled as he turned around and looked up to the shocked teen, with his right fist closed with a green glow. You forgot that I could do little tricks like this, too, didn't you? He reminded with a grin as Ida's eyes widened in realization. Not waiting for response, Izuku used his psychokinesis to place Ida on his back and sprouted bones from the ground to restrain his ankles and wrists. Once sure he was secured, he cancelled his psychokinesis and looked at Ida. I believe that's game? He knowingly asked as he casually approached his restrained friend. From his position, Ida sighed with a smile as he allowed himself to settle in his restraints. Indeed, he admitted with no resentment in his voice. That's kind of kinky. Midnight thought with a perverted grin before shaking it off and raising her whip. Ida Tenya is immobilized, Izuku Midoriya wins. The stadium was filled with applause after her announcement. While this was happening, Izuku snapped his fingers, making the restraints disappear, as he walked over to his friend and offered a hand with a grin. Ida immediately took the hand and looked at Izuku with the same expression. Excellent match, Midoriya, he nodded to him while shaking his hand. Yep, Izuku replied as he let go of Ida's hand. Those were some sweet moves, by the way. His praise earned a smile from his friend. Both students were then escorted out of the ring, making way for the next match. Bakugo vs Tokoyami. The match played out the same. That was brutal, Kaminari said with a shudder as others agreed with him. When Izuku and Ida returned, they were greeted with praise from their fellow classmates. Not long after, Bakugo and Tokoyami's match started. As the match progressed, it became clear to everyone that Bakugo had the advantage. Though Tokoyami's dark shadow is powerful, it was no match from the light emitted from Bakugo's explosions. Once the shadow was defeated, Bakugo pinned Tokoyami down and forced him to surrender. No argument here, Kirishima said with a nervous grin, remembering the match he had against Bakugo. Making some wince from the brutal match he had. Welp, Izuku said from his seat, gaining everyone's attention. Guess it's my turn, he stated with a shrug. Good luck, Mina said with a smile before giving him a quick kiss, making Izuku smile before standing up. You've got this, Deku. Ochiko cheered while punching the air in excitement. Tenya happily chimed in. We believe in you, Midoriya. He cheered with his usual arm chops while Todoroki nodded to him with a smile. You can do it, bro. Kirishima stated with a thumbs up, while others cheered for him as well. Izuku gave them a smile. Thanks, guys, he said happily before making his way to the waiting room. Waiting room. In the room, Izuku sat on the chair with a thoughtful expression. He knew Bakugo would give everything he's got to achieve victory, which made him wonder what he could do to counter such ferocity. His thoughts were interrupted when the door opened, revealing to be Bakugo, who walked in with a serious expression. Sup, Izuku greeted with a grin, making Bakugo grunt before sitting across Izuku. After a bit of silence, Bakugo spoke up. Don't you dare fucking hold anything back, you hear? Izuku nodded with a smile. I won't. He said sincerely, getting a smirk from Bakugo. Though? Izuku continued, getting Bakugo's attention. I do want to have some fun first before we fight, he stated with a grin. Bakugo narrowed his eyes at him. The hell are you planning, nerd? He asked with an annoyed tone, already expecting it to be some dumb shit from his friend. He didn't disappoint, as with a big grin on his face, Izuku happily explained what he had in mind, which resulted in Bakugo glaring at him. The fuck, Deku? He scowled. This'll be the final fight, do you honestly think everyone has time for this bullshit? He asked in clear annoyance. Considering this will be the final match, both contestants were given special microphones, allowing the audience to hear them. The equipment was especially made to endure the harsh battles, ensuring its survival. Izuku pretended to think about it before shrugging. Maybe, he plainly said with a grin. Bakugo glared at him for a bit before sighing in exasperation. Fine, he begrudgingly agreed, getting Izuku to beam with a pumped fist. But if no one gets it, I'll kick your ass, capish? He threatened with a scowl. Noted, Izuku stated with a chuckle, already looking forward to the match while Bakugo groaned, wondering what he got himself into. Before they could say anything else, Present MIC's voice was heard. The final match is about to begin. Midoriya Izuku and Bakugo Katsuki, please report to the arena. He finished, as they heard the crowd cheering. Well, Izuku said as he stood up. Best of luck, bud, he stated as he offered a handshake to Bakugo with a smile. The explosive teen stared at it before grabbing it with a grunt. Whatever, he stated with a grumble before heading out, while Izuku followed with a chuckle. Stadium Arena. Now for the event we've all been waiting for. Present MIC announced as everyone roared. First up, the teen with the explosive quirk, from the hero course, Bakugo Katsuki, he announced as Bakugo stepped on the arena with a scowl, while the audience roared in applause. Versus the madman with a powerful quirk, also from the hero course, Midoriya Izuku. He finished as the crowd roared again. While Izuku stepped on the arena with a grin. Let the match begin. He announced as the audience held their breath, wondering who will do the first move. But to their confusion, both contestants didn't move an inch. Before Present MIC could say anything, Izuku cleared his throat before wearing a smug expression. Kaken, he called out in a mocking tone, catching his classmates off guard. On cue, Bakugo started marching towards Izuku with a deadly expression. Deku. He called out in a deadly tone that made some of the audience members nervous. Izuku smirked before he spread his arms wide, doing a come-at-me pose. Oh? You approaching me? Some audience members were confused while others were wondering why this felt familiar somehow. Instead of running away, you're coming right at me. He taunted while Bakugo kept marching forward with a serious expression. Izuku wasn't fazed and continued. Even though I defeated Todoroki with my bizarre quirk, like an exam student scrambling to finish the problems on an exam until the last moments before the chime. He taunted while the audience found themselves glued to the scene. I can't blast the shit out of you without getting closer, Bakugo replied with a serious expression as he kept walking. Izuku gave him a dangerous grin. Ho! Ho! Then come as close as you like, he challenged as his eyes glowed in intensity while Bakugo smirked before ending his march. The two then stared at each other with serious expressions. While they did this, some of the audience members connected the dots and realized what the two were doing. Some found themselves either calling out the reference or joining in. Class 1A. Some students were laughing to themselves, while others remained confused. Why do I suddenly feel the need to pose? Kirishima thought, as he looked at himself in wonder while discreetly flexing his muscles, not noticing how Sato also looked at himself with the same thoughts. They then turned their attention to the arena, happy to know that despite their rivalry, the duo can still have time to ease the tension. Although in their moment, no one noticed the serious expressions that Mina and Ochako wore. Commentary box. Within his bandages, Aizawa sighed to himself. Needless to say, he understood the reference, though he would rather die than admit it aloud. He'll never hear the end of it from his co-host Hisoshi. Speaking of present MIC. Is that a mother JoJo reference? He asked in excitement, while most of the audience members and students alike cheered as a response. Stadium Arena. Hearing some of the audience's reactions, Bakugo smirked to himself. Happy to know that he didn't make a complete ass of himself for nothing, while Izuku was wearing a big grin, more than happy to know that there are some cultured people among the audience. His enjoyment was interrupted when Bakugo spoke up. Now that that's shit done, he started getting everyone's attention. Let's get started, he stated with a viscous grin, getting a nod from Izuku. Undertale OST Megalovania plays at 0:16. Bakugo sprang into action and immediately threw his hands back to propel himself forward with his explosions, wearing a viscous expression on his face, as Izuku responded by sprouting a 3-layer bone fence in front of him. Bakugo then corrected himself and went over the fences. Once he did, he quickly aimed his palms towards at Izuku. Boom. As the blast traveled, Izuku disappeared and reappeared behind Bakugo with a bone club ready. Only to be shocked when Bakugo managed to dodge the swing with nothing but his instincts. The latter then quickly tried to aim at Izuku, only for him be nowhere in sight. With a growl, Bakugo landed and turned to where he thought Izuku would be, and to his chagrin, he is wearing a big grin on his face as he stood. Stop dodging, damn it! He yelled in fury as he brought his hands up. Izuku shrugged, further testing Bakugo's patience. What? Did you think I would just stand there and take it? He chortled as he snapped his fingers. Before Bakugo could say anything, he instinctively launched himself in the air, and just in time to ****. The place where he once stood was attacked by green lasers. Looking up, he saw 4 medium-sized blasters. And unfortunately, the blasters weren't done as they took aim towards Bakugo, growling as they formed green energy spheres while doing so. ****. Cheap shit nerd, Bakugo growled in annoyance before he twisted himself in the air and expertly propelled himself in different directions to avoid the oncoming lasers. He kept dodging the beams from left to right, with some even grazing him a bit. Eventually he stopped when he noticed that the blasters have despawned. Seeing the chance, he decided to land and catch his breath. Glancing at Izuku, he noticed how he was sweating a bit, a result from overusing the blasters a while ago. The OFA user then stomped his right foot forward, sending a wave of bones to Bakugo, who responded by propelling himself off the ground to avoid them. Following up, he waved his hands forward, sending bones towards the explosive teen. With widened eyes, Bakugo twisted himself in the air again, narrowly avoiding the attacks. Before launching himself towards Izuku, and once close enough, he used his explosions to spin himself and attempt to hit the teen with a powerful kick, only for Izuku to dodge it with ease. With a huff, he slammed his feet to the ground and attempted to hit Izuku with his close-range explosions. One hit is all I need, he angrily thought as he kept swinging his explosive palms at Izuku, who kept dodging it without any issue. Deciding to switch it up, he quickly positioned his palms forward and aimed them towards Izuku, who was surprised by the sudden strategy change. Stun grenade! He roared as he created a blinding burst of light, causing Izuku to recoil with his eyes closed. Seeing his chance, Bakugo quickly followed up with a small explosion, sending Izuku flying towards the outside the ring. And before the latter could continue flying, he countered by sprouting bones from the ground, barely to stopping him from falling out of the ring. Cheap shot Kaken, Izuku groaned as he stood up while attempting to regain his vision, but to no avail while Bakugo growled in irritation. With his eyesight temporarily blinded, Izuku opted to rely on his senses, and went on the offensive, as he wore a serious expression and spawned 4 medium-sized blasters, before sending them towards Bakugo with the addition of bone projectiles. And although surprised from the sudden burst of attacks, Bakugo launched himself in the air again to dodge several bones and lasers. During his maneuvering, he managed to destroy some bones being thrown his way in an attempt to ease the pressure, only for them to be replaced soon after. At one point he managed to land on top of one of the blasters and damage it, before launching off of it, and began dodging again. Meanwhile the audience could only watch in awe as the scene turned into a laser show, complete with air maneuvers and everything. But unfortunately for Bakugo, his dodging skills weren't perfect, as he found himself getting grazed in the cheek by a bone and grazed by a laser beam to the arm. But he powered through, trying to avoid as much damage as possible. And as he kept dodging, he grit his teeth as signs of fatigue began to make themselves known within his body. Try as he might, but even he knew that his quirk and body had its limits. With that in mind, he dodged another laser blast and launched himself towards Izuku again to avoid wasting his energy. Once he was close enough, he was surprised when the OFA user zipped to the side with a fist ready. And as the world seemed to slow down, he saw Izuku opening his glowing eyes with a grin forming on his face. Gotcha, he charged 5%, producing green sparks while doing so. Shit! Bakugo mentally cursed with wide eyes as he braced himself, knowing he wasn't fast enough to dodge the attack. Izuku then slammed his fist on Bakugo's abdomen, knocking the wind out of him, but just before he was sent flying, he set off an explosion towards Izuku, sending the teen flying as well. Bakugo then used an explosion to stop himself from flying out of the ring, while Izuku sprouted bones from the ground to stop himself from tumbling out of the arena. Both students then stood up with a groan and stared at each other with serious expressions, both exhausted and damaged from the fight. Though admittedly not as bad as Bakugo. Crack asterisk. Bakugo's eyes widened when he heard something behind him. He quickly turned around, only to see a bone sprout from the ground and struck his abdomen again, sending him flying towards Izuku, who used his psychokinesis to slam him onto the ground, causing him to let out a pained grunt. Remembering the last match, Bakugo quickly rolled out of the way. Looking back, he saw bones sprout from the ground where his wrists and ankles should be. With a growl he stood and looked to Izuku, who was looking pretty tired as well. Song ends. Fuck this shit. Bakugo growled and aimed both his palms towards Izuku, as they started flaring up with a serious expression on his face. Izuku's glowing eyes widened when he noticed how it felt similar to how Bakugo used his quirk on Ochiko's special move. He then quickly formed a blaster around his left arm and took aim with a serious expression of his own. *VR***. The crowd held its breath, seeing that it looked like an old-fashioned standoff. Even present MIC didn't say a word, as he and Eraserhead looked at the scene in silence, wondering how things will end. Midnight and Cementos in the meantime were on high alert, wondering if they needed to do damage control again. Class 1A. The students were in the same state, wondering just how much more will these two push themselves. They were already blown away by the amount of power they showed, so they couldn't help but feel nervous as they watched the two having stare down. Holy shit, Kaminari said with a nervous sweat, with others sharing the same sentiments. Couldn't have said it better than myself, Sato agreed with a bit of sweat as well. Mineta in the meantime hid behind the Kirishima's seat. Those two are monsters, he stated in fear. Ignoring the cowering teen, Kirishima gave a nervous grin. I think it's a pretty manly match, he stated in awe, though ready to use his quirk just in case. As the class discussed among themselves, Mina and Ochako stayed silent, both worried for Izuku's fight and another matter. Stadium Arena. Both contestants had both attacks ready, it was just a matter of who will make the first move. Audience members and pros looked between the two, waiting for the inevitable clash. The world seemed to stop moving for everyone as the tension slowly built up. Until Die! Bakugo roared as he prepared to unleash his powerful explosion, while Izuku tensed and added 10%. Boom. As predicted, the explosion was just as large as when he used it against Ochako. Izuku then responded in kind and fired his blaster, pushing himself back a bit. Zwooster. Both attacks clashed for a bit, before Izuku's beam pierced through the explosion and was on a path towards Bakugo, who countered by launching himself in the air to avoid the blast, as it made its way to the other side of the arena. Thankfully, Cementos created a wall to stop the beam from causing further damage, while said pro was shocked by how strong the attack felt to him. As everyone looked up, they can see Bakugo in the air, all wondering what he was planning to do. This shit ends now. He roared as he rocketed towards Izuku, while releasing explosions in a circular motion, creating a hurricane of smoke around himself as he gained more power. From below, Izuku responded by rearing his fist back while charging a great amount of OFA throughout his body and jumping towards Bakugo's powerful attack. This was the moment that both fighters waited for, to see who was the strongest in the end. Howatizer. Bakugo wore a vicious expression as he prepared a powerful swing. Izuku's glowing eyes steeled as he reared his fist back, his sparks growing in intensity as it left a trail in the air. Prehensile. Meanwhile, the audience members braced themselves for the clash. Smash Impact. They both roared as they unleashed their attacks. Boom. The result was a massive cloud of smoke, followed by a strong shockwave that knocked some people over. As the smoke cleared, they were met with a shocking scene. Not only was the arena severely damaged with bones and burn marks all over it, but on the center of the arena, Izuku was on his back, the ground around him cracked from being launched from the clash. Before the pros could move in, Izuku stirred with a groan before slowly standing up, revealing that his shirt was torn up from the clash. He also sported some bruises and a noticeable burn mark on his left hand. While panting, he began looking for his friend, wondering where he ended up. And before he could start worrying, he heard something. Boom. Boom. Looking up, he and everyone else was surprised to see Bakugo correcting himself. As he descended, it became apparent to Izuku that his friend must have been launched from the clash. Now that's a rocket man, Izuku thought with an amused expression, as he watched Bakugo slowly make his landing. Once on the ground, Bakugo went on one knee as everyone got a good look at his state. His clothes were also torn up, he also cuts and burns accumulated from the battle. Seeing that Izuku was in better shape, Midnight was about to declare him the winner when Bakugo spoke up. He growled as he stood up. I'm not done yet. He declared with a huff as brought his palms up, emitting smoke as he did. Izuku then gave him an apologetic expression. Sorry bud, everyone looked to him. But I don't think that's the case, he stated sincerely, making Bakugo think. No matter how much he thought about it, Deku was right. His palms already felt numb from overusing his quirk, and it didn't help that he can barely stand as it is. What's more, Deku looked like he could still pull off at least a few more moves in his current state. Bakugo sighed in defeat, as he brought his hands down, as he side-glanced at Midnight with a serious expression. I fucking give up, he stated in annoyance, hating how he had no choice but to say it. Meanwhile Izuku smiled, happy to know that he can listen to reason. Midnight nodded in affirmative, then raised her whip. Bakugo Katsuki is unable to continue, Midoriya Izuku wins, she declared with a smile as the crowd erupted, filling the stadium with their cheers. Ignoring the announcement, Izuku smiled as he used his psychokinesis and brought Bakugo to him. Once close enough, he placed the explosive teen's arm around his shoulder, supporting him in case he fell. Said teen was surprised for a bit, before grunting from his position with a smirk. Meanwhile, the audience members and students alike cheered from this sportsmanlike behavior, as Izuku looked at Bakugo with a smile. That was a good fight, bud. Bakugo rolled his eyes as he looked away. Whatever, he dismissed before looking back at Izuku. I'll just kick your ass next time, he declared with a smirk while Izuku grinned in return. Whatever you say, Bruce Lee, Izuku joked before chuckling while Bakugo snorted and looked away with a small smile. They were brought out of their conversation when Present MIC made an announcement. And there you have it, folks. The champion of this year's sports festival is Izuku Midoriya of the hero course. The audience went into a frenzy as Izuku waved to them with a grin while Bakugo waved to the crowd as well. Before anything else, the duo saw a medical team led by a very angry-looking recovery girl making their way towards them. Noticing the heroine's expression, Izuku whispered to Bakugo. Do you think she's pissed at me or you? He asked with a bit of a nervous tone, having a sinking feeling that he knew the answer. Bakugo eyed the incoming pro for a bit, before turning to Izuku with a shit-eating grin. I think she's happy to see you, Deku, he smugly answered, making Izuku gulp in fear, much to his amusement. The two were then separated between the two medical teams, and to Izuku's worry, he was placed under recovery girl, who looked ready to scold him when the chance is given. I'm so boned, he thought in fear as he stared at the heroine from his stretcher. The medical pro looking eager to have a one-on-one session with Izuku. Recovery Girls Clinic. Yep, I was right, Izuku thought with a grimace on his patient bed as he rubbed a sore spot on his head. Upon being treated from his injuries, Recovery Girl spared no time and immediately started scolding Izuku for his reckless behavior, which not only caused harm to himself, but harm to his fellow classmate. And to make sure he got the message, he was treated to a fair amount of cane hits. Fortunately she forgave him, but warned him to be more careful next time, while All Might congratulated him for going beyond and achieving victory. Now I know how All Might feels, Izuku thought with an awkward chuckle, as he remembered the times All Might looked scared when scolded by Recovery Girl. He then noticed a fresh pair of clothes beside his bed, since the ones he wore were damaged from the fight. He stretched before getting off his bed and went on to change into fresh clothes. He then looked to himself in the mirror. Assessing the damage he got, he noted that his left arm was covered in bandages, while his other one sported small patches as well. He also had a patch on his cheek to treat the burn he got from the blasts, with his torso being in the same state as his left arm. Sheesh, at this rate people will think I'm cosplaying as Aizawa-sensei, he thought with a chuckle as he looked at himself, silently worrying how his mother will react to his injuries. His thoughts were interrupted when he heard the doors opening. Turning to the doors he saw Bakugo walking in with a slightly salty expression. He also wore bandages to his arms and a few bandages to cover the scratches he got on his face. Izuku then fully turned to him with a smile. Hey bud, he approached his friend. You okay? He asked in concern, wondering if he went too far during the battle. Bakugo clicked his tongue at him. Damn right I am, he flexed his hands for emphasis. It'll take more than a few scratches to keep me down, he proudly stated while Izuku chuckled at his declaration. But, Bakugo added, getting Izuku's attention. Don't think this means our match is settled yet, he declared with a vicious grin. Izuku returned the grin. I'll be looking forward to it, he chuckled while Bakugo grunted in agreement before their attention was directed elsewhere when the clinic doors opened again, revealing Mina and Ochako. Mina immediately approached Izuku and gave him a gentle hug, minding his injuries. While Izuku responded by returning the gesture the best he could. Glad to see you two in good shape, Ochako stated happily, getting Izuku to look at her with a smile while Bakugo rolled his eyes at their concern. Mina then looked at Izuku with a smile, prompting him to look at her. You two were amazing. She cheered with a bounce. Thanks Mina, Izuku said with a chuckle before giving her a kiss to the forehead, making her smile sweetly at him. Of course I fucking am. Bakugo shouted confidently, making Mina and Ochako deadpan at him for his lack of humbleness. While Izuku laughed at Bakugo's usual demeanor, knowing that it was his way of expressing himself. As he calmed down, Izuku noticed someone missing. Hey, he called out, getting everyone's attention. Where's Ida? He stated in confusion, wondering where his tall friend went. Now that you mention it, Bakugo added. Where is Four Eyes? He asked in curiosity. With a worried expression, Mina separated from Izuku, making him confused. Well. She trailed off before turning to Ochako, who was also wearing a worried expression. This of course got the attention of both Izuku and Bakugo, wondering what could have happened during their match. Before your fight, Ochako started. Ida needed to leave, she stated with worry, getting surprised expressions from Izuku and Bakugo. Izuku then wore a worried expression. What happened? He stated in concern, wondering what could have happened to his friend. Mina cleared her throat, getting everyone's attention. Here's what happened. Flashback before the match. Ida, Ochako and Mina were currently making their way to watch Izuku and Bakugo's match. Suddenly Ida got a phone call, prompting him to answer it in private. Mina and Ochako chose to wait for him in the meantime, seeing that there was still time before the match. When he returned, he wore a worried expression, confusing the two. Uraraka, Mina. A hint of fear was in his voice, concerning the two. Ida continued. This is sudden, but I must leave early, he stated, getting the two to listen intently. A villain got my older brother, he stated with sadness, getting gasps from the two. Your brother? Ochako stated. You mean Ingenium? A somber nod was his response. Mina immediately voiced her worries. How's he doing? She asked as she and Ochako hoped that he wasn't hurt too bad. With a sorrowful expression, Ida replied. I don't know the details, he started, barely able to hold himself together. So I'm going to go visit him directly to see, he finished as he turned around, not waiting for a response. He then began walking away, leaving Mina and Ochako to their thoughts. Present-time Recovery Girls Clinic. By the end of the story, Mina and Ochako were more worried than before while Izuku looked shocked. In the meantime, Bakugo wore a serious expression. They all couldn't imagine the amount of grief Ida must be going through, they all knew it came with being a hero. But experiencing this feeling was another subject altogether. As Izuku looked down in worry, he couldn't help but remember Ida's words. He is a likable hero, who honors the rules and leads people. I set my sights on being a hero, because I want to be like my brother. Ingenium. Izuku thought as he clenched his fists. For Ida's sake too, I hope that you're okay, he finished in worry, wondering how much this could affect his friend. The somber mood was interrupted when Recovery Girl knocked on the door. I hate to interrupt, but both of you need to get back to the arena to receive their medals. All right, Izuku replied with a nod before turning to his friends. Come on guys, he stated with a smile, but they could all see him worrying about Ida. Mina responded by grabbing his hand and giving him an encouraging smile. Izuku then looked at everyone else. He saw them giving him encouraging expressions as well. Or in Bakugu's case, an encouraging stare. He nodded to them before they started making their way out of the room. Upon exiting, a staff member instructed Mina and Ochako to gather with the rest of the students, while Izuku and Bakugu were directed to another area where the finalists would be. When they entered, they saw Todoroki, who was standing on the third-place pillar. It became apparent to both that the pillars will rise and be revealed to the people of the stadium. The bicolored teen turned to them and took notice of their expressions. "What's wrong?" he asked with his usual expression, but they can hear the concern in his voice. Izuku sighed as he rubbed the back of his neck. "It's a long story, buddy. I'll tell you while they do the introductions," he stated seriously, getting a nod from Todoroki. As Midnight did the introductions, they took their place on their respective pillars, and at the same time, Izuku used the opportunity to update Todoroki on what he missed. By the end of it, he was shocked. The three then shook off their somber moods when they noticed the ceiling above them started opening as Izuku turned to the two with a smile. "I guess it's showtime." Bakugu and Todoroki nodded in agreement as their platforms began to rise. Stadium Arena. "And now we will begin the award ceremony," Midnight declared as the underground platforms rose from the ground, amplifying the cheers of the audience. As the podiums ceased their movement, the three champions began looking around the arena. Bakugu looked smug, Todoroki looked stoic as usual, while Izuku looked to the audience with a smile. His eyes then landed to the group of participants gathered at the center, more specifically his classmates who were cheering for them. It didn't take him long to spot Mina, who was cheering at the top of her lungs. Izuku responded with a wink that made her heart flutter, while other students from different courses cheered as well, with no one noticing the aura of envy from Mineta. Midnight then spoke. "Now, we will award the medals," she announced, instantly getting everyone's attention. "The presentation of the medals will, of course, be by this man dash." Her announcement was interrupted when a familiar laugh boomed throughout the stadium. "Ha! Ha! Ha! Ha!" Everyone turned to the source, which was on top of the stadium walls. Upon seeing him, the audience and students alike cheered for his arrival. In the meantime, Izuku looked to his mentor in awe. No matter how many times he does it, he'll never get tired of his entrance, or the effect it had on others. However, not all entrances are perfect. As All Might leapt into the arena, he was announcing his arrival in his usual manner. However, Midnight ended up announcing his arrival as well, which resulted in a mess of talking over one another. "Our very own hero, All Might, / I have brought the medals here." Upon landing, there was an awkward silence, both realizing that the entrance was ruined. All the while, Izuku was trying his damnedest not to laugh. "I talked over you," Midnight stated apologetically, while All Might looked to her embarrassed, which resulted in a few laughs from the students and audience members alike, while Izuku used this chance to release some of his pent-up laughter as well. Midnight then cleared her throat as she presented the medals to All Might. "Now then, All Might, please present the medals, starting with third place," she stated with a hint of embarrassment from her earlier mistake. All Might then walked up to Todoroki and placed the third-place medal around his neck. "Young Todoroki, congratulations. I assume that there was a reason that you never used your left side," he asked in a gentle manner, while Izuku and Bakugu listened intently. Todoroki then replied with a thoughtful expression. "I had an opportunity during my match with Midoriya." He started getting a confused look from Izuku. "I think I understand why you are interested in him," he stated calmly, making Izuku smile. All Might showed no facial reaction, but Izuku could tell that he was beaming with pride. While Bakugo smirked, also understanding what Todoroki meant. After everything Izuku's done so far, it's understandable that the symbol of peace would have his eyes on him. Not knowing that there was a bigger reason than that. Todoroki continued. I wanted to become a hero like you. But I didn't think it would be right for me to be the only one to break away. He then looked to All Might in the eyes. There is still something I must settle, he declared with his usual expression, but Izuku noticed that there was spirit in his voice. Having an idea what he meant, Izuku looked to Todoroki with a smile. All Might nodded in approval to him. The look on your face is completely different from before, he stated before giving him a gentle hug. I won't ask for details, I'm sure that you will be able to do what you need to do, he stated in understanding while giving Todoroki a few pats on the back. Yes, Todoroki responded while All Might separated and looked to him in approval. All Might then walked to Bakugo and presented his second-place medal. Congratulations young Bakugo, he stated as he placed the medal around a slightly salty Bakugo's neck. Like everyone here, you showed great skill. But never forget that there is always room to improve, keep that in mind and I'm sure you'll go far, he stated before giving a gentle hug. After separating he received a firm nod from Bakugo. As said student looked to his medal with a serious expression. Satisfied with the response, All Might approached his successor and presented his first-place medal proudly. Congratulations young Midoriya, he stated as he placed the medal around a smiling Izuku. But remember to never let victories like this go to your head, for this doesn't make you better than everyone, he stated seriously, getting a nod from Izuku. You showed skill and true heroism during the whole event. I can say without a doubt that you've earned this, he stated in the same tone, as when he passed OFA to him, making Izuku a little teary-eyed. He then gave Izuku a gentle and whispered something into his ear. You've made me proud my boy, he stated sincerely before separating as Izuku wiped away his tears. All Might then turned to the rest of the students. Well, they were the winners this time, he stated, getting everyone's attention. But listen here. Anyone here could have ended up on these podiums, he declared, while the students listened intently. He continued. It's just as you saw, he started loudly. Competing. Improving each other. And climbing even further. The next generation of heroes is definitely sprouting. He declared proudly as he pointed a finger to the air. So I have one more thing to say, getting everyone to feel the hype, having an idea what he was going to say. Everyone, please say it with me, he requested, much to everyone's excitement. Having absolutely no doubt what he wanted them to say with him. Ready, go, he declared as the crowd prepared to say his signature line. Unfortunately, the results weren't what everyone expected. Thanks for your hard work, /plus ultra. There was a brief silence, before the crowd started booing All Might. What? It should have been plus ultra, there, All Might, the crowd scolded in sync, while All Might looked sheepish from the outbursts. Well, I thought everyone worked hard. He stated in embarrassment, as he poked his fingers together in a sheepish manner. All the while, Izuku was laughing out loud, much to his mentor's embarrassment. Truthfully, he didn't want to embarrass his mentor, but there was just some things that were just too funny to ignore. And unfortunately for All Might, his laughter was contagious enough to send Mina, and most of the students into a laughing fit as well. Further embarrassing the Pro. UA Grounds 1A classroom. Before anyone else could go home, Aizawa announced a meeting. Good work, the mummified Pro started. So there will be no school or the day after. He announced, getting some surprised looks from the students. Taking the silence as permission, Aizawa continued. I'm sure the pro heroes who watch the sports festival will want to recruit you, but we'll consolidate everything and announce when you get back. He stated, getting nods from everyone. So rest well and look forward to that, he added before walking away to get some much-needed rest. Yes, sir. The class replied in unison. From his seat, Izuku turned his attention to the empty seat of the class president. As of now, he hasn't received any word from his friend, making his worries increase for not only Ida, but for his brother as well. He was brought out of his thoughts when pink arms wrapped around him from behind. "Heya," came a sweet voice. Izuku chuckled before leaning back into the embrace and looked up to Mina with a smile. "Hey," he replied warmly, gaining a giggle from her. "So I was thinking." Mina hesitated, getting a curious look from Izuku. "Since we have no school tomorrow, maybe we can use the opportunity to introduce me to your folks," she offered with a semi-nervous grin, while he looked at her in shock. Izuku then thought about it, before smiling at her. "Sure," Mina beamed from the response. "Mom has been wanting to meet you anyway," he shrugged. "I'm sure she has," Mina replied with a giggle, remembering the stories of how his mother responded when she heard of their relationship. Izuku chuckled knowingly before gently gripping her arms. "Say," he playfully narrowed his eyes at her. "How long do you plan on hugging me?" He teased with a grin, showing no signs of discomfort from the embrace. Mina caught on and feigned offense. "Are you already done with me?" she gasped dramatically while giving him puppy eyes. Izuku grinned a bit before looking at her fondly. "Yeah, you're right," he lazily agreed as he got comfortable. "I'm pretty comfy here," he shrugged with a grin while Mina giggled before she leaned in and kissed him on the forehead. After she leaned back, he responded by gently placing his palm on her cheek and guided her in for an upside-down kiss. They then separated and looked to each other happily before laughing to themselves, leaning their foreheads against each other as they remained close. Unbeknownst to them, the rest of the class was watching them. It became apparent to everyone that they were in their own little world. The girls cooed at them sweetly with Ochiko and Toru discreetly taking pictures, while the boys looked at them in approval. "Well, all except that bastard." Minato fumed as he prepared to make his way to the couple. There was only so much he could take before his envy went out of hand. In the meantime, Kaminari also looked at the couple in envy, but unlike the short teen, he suppressed it, knowing that he would be in pretty hot water with a certain earphone-jacked girl. Said girl glanced at him with a challenging look, ready to strike him down if he did anything foolish, making him sweat a bit, wondering if her Quirk could hear his thoughts too. Back with Minato. The small teen was on his way to the couple, until a hand landed on his shoulder, halting his advance. The teen turned to glare at the person, only for him to turn white upon learning that the hand belongs to Bakugo, who towered over him with a deadly glare. "Go ahead," he leaned in with a vicious grin forming on his face. "Make my fucking day." Minato responded by promptly fainting. Thud. The response disappointed Bakugo. "Damn," he sighed in annoyance, having lost a way of venting his frustration before heading home. The interaction made everyone sweat drop, wondering if they should thank him, or be scared of him, or maybe even both. All the while, Izuku and Mina were still happily talking to each other, blissfully unaware of anything else. Midoriya residence. "I'm home," Izuku called as he stepped into his home with a smile on his face. Not a second later, he heard footsteps approaching him. Knowing what's about to happen, he decided to do a little test and enhance his bones. "Let's see what happens," he thought to himself as he waited for his mother to appear. On cue, his mother appeared and immediately charged at him with tears in her eyes. "My baby boy," she cried before hugging her son with a great amount of force, and to Izuku's surprise, his bones felt like crumbling from the embrace. Not even this is enough, Izuku thought in surprise as he returned the hug with a grunt. "Hey, Mom. He tried calling out as he was losing consciousness. Thankfully, his mother noticed and released her son. "Sorry dear," she apologized as she watched Izuku greedily take in air. "I was just worried after seeing you fight in the festivals. Which lead to me fainting 8 times, she quickly added with an embarrassed expression, while Izuku rubbed the back of his neck, silently vowing to try and not scare his mother too much. He then chuckled before giving her a gentle hug. "Sounds like you were more heroic than me, huh?" he teased, while his mother returned the hug with a small chuckle of her own. "Of course," she replied with a laugh while Izuku joined in. From his position, Izuku suddenly remembered something. "Oh, that's right," he suddenly said, making his mother look at him curiously. "Mina will be here tomorrow," he stated happily, making his mother gasp in surprise. "That's wonderful," she cheered, evidently excited to meet the girl that won her baby's heart. "We can discuss it over dinner," she gestured to the dining table, which had a wide variety of foods. "We're celebrating tonight," she proudly announced before making her way to the dining area. With a smile, Izuku was about to follow when mule. Looking down, he saw Temi at his feet, looking at him expectantly. So with a chuckle he picked her up. "Hey there," he greeted warmly. "Did you see me out there?" Temi merely mewed in response, making Izuku chuckle before lifting her up with his psychokinesis. "I'm glad you enjoyed it," he gave the floating cat a gentle belly rub, making her purr in delight. "Izuku, dinner's getting cold," his mother's voice called out from the dining area, getting the attention of both Izuku and Temi. "Coming," Izuku called back happily, as he made his way to the dining area with Temi floating behind him, mewling happily while doing so.